Welcome back to Cheddar's Opening Bell, everyone. I'm Asia Salastino. As part of our continuing coverage of Hispanic Heritage Month, Cheddar would like to highlight senior New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. Born to Cuban immigrant parents back in 1954, Menendez grew up in Union City, New Jersey, where an affinity for public speaking led him to a life in politics. In 2006, Menendez became only the sixth Hispanic to serve in the United States Senate, and Senator Bob Menendez joins us now. Senator, thank you so much for joining us. My first question for you: why is Hispanic Heritage Month so important?
Well, good to be with you, Asia. Look, Hispanic Heritage Month is important because it is a celebration of the contributions of a community that has had a history in our country since before the founding of the nation. When St. Augustine, Florida, the oldest city in America, was founded by a gentleman named Pedro Aviles de Menendez. When Bernardo del Galvez, a Spanish acting governor in Louisiana, led an all Spanish contingent against the British as they were advancing on George Washington, to the realities of the names on the Vietnam War, disproportionately Latino, who died in defense of the nation, to tremendous successes in the arts and sciences, and so much more. So it is a celebration of all of that. The largest minority, fastest growing in the nation, $1 trillion domestic marketplace that comes from the community. And so these are all the elements that we celebrate at this time every year.
Well said. We mentioned that your parents were Cuban immigrants. Were there any lessons that they instilled in you that you still serve you well today in the Senate?
Well, my mother was my hero, is my hero. She's not alive with us anymore, but she was someone who had the courage to uproot herself from her country because she didn't like what she saw in Batista, a dictator of the right. She didn't like what she saw in the Sierra Maestra with Castro, and she uprooted our family. Then my brother and sister and my father to come to the United States and start all over again, with no guarantees, not a full understanding of the language, customs, no job guarantees. And I think about the courage it takes to uproot yourself to start all over again because you don't want your children, my brother and sister at that time, to grow up in such a country. So that's the type of courage and determination she had. Hard work and sacrifice. She was a seamstress in the factories of Hudson County. And I would look at her and often wonder how, after a long, hard day of work, she'd come at home. She'd say, "Sit down and read your homework to me." I'd say to her, "You don't understand English." And she said, "That's what you think. Read it to me." And it was expression of the importance of education. I learned about equal pay for equal work when she was so good at what she did that they told her to work on the floor in the factory and help other workers, but she never got paid what guys who were the floor managers got paid. So that taught me about equal work for equal pay. And then lastly, she had a long struggle with Alzheimer's. And it taught me about the intergenerational challenges we face as families when we have a loved one who's ill, as we try to educate our children and also take care of our loved one in the twilight of their lives. So many life lessons came from her.
So many powerful lessons, and I'm sure so many that others can relate to out there. She sounds like a really strong woman. But I want to go ahead and switch gears because we are coming off the heels of a debate last night. You are an ardent critic of President Trump. So, what were your biggest takeaways?
Well, my first of all, I think it was a national embarrassment, and the world was watching. I'm convinced the president knows that he's on the course to losing, and the only way that he can survive is by trashing the process, trashing the electoral process, the casting of ballots, creating doubt about the whole element. Uh, he couldn't speak to one thing that's important in the lives of the American people. He knew about the pandemic well before the rest of us did. He knew how deadly it was. He lied, and 200,000 people died. He didn't pay what the normal person in our country pays. He didn't pay a scintilla of that. The teacher, the police officer, the sanitation worker, all paid far more than Donald Trump's no tax payments for 10 years or $750 in the last 2 years. That's outrageous. The reason we pay taxes is for the public good. And then, he has no sense about our standing in the world and our ability to regain allies, which we have lost under his leadership. So, the reality is, I thought the debate was a national disgrace. He can't even abide by the rules of a debate, much less does he think that the laws of the country apply to him.
You brought up taxes. You were on the Senate floor yesterday blasting the president over his reported tax documents. Let's go ahead and play that clip when it came up last night.
The president is a liar, a cheat, and a fraud. For years, he marketed himself as a self-made, successful businessman. But it's all an illusion.
And as we said last night during the debate, the president claimed that he's actually been paying millions in taxes, not $750. Unclear on whether he was talking about federal income tax, which was the question. But I think the real question here is, do you think that the American people and voters actually care about this issue?
Well, look, I think no one is happy to pay taxes, but they certainly are extremely unhappy when the president of the country pays nothing and they pay more than their fair share. This is a president who is the only president in modern history who has not released his tax returns. So the question is, what's he hiding? We need to know, for example, in the huge debt that he possesses, several $100 million, how much of that is foreign debt and who is holding that debt? Who's into the president and what interests do they have? The American people deserve to know that. Several national security experts say that raises a serious national security question. So whether it's fairness and justice in terms of participating in the collective needs of all of us by paying your fair share, or whether it is about our national security and not showing your taxes because you don't want to show who you owe to foreign countries and foreign individuals, this is something that I think does resonate at the end of the day, because people work hard, they pay their taxes, they expect the President of the United States to do the same.
Senator, really quickly, something that also came up during the debate was the president trying to push through a new nominee for the Supreme Court, Judge Amy Coney Barrett. So will you be voting against the appointment of Judge Barrett?
Look, this is not a process that is acceptable. Millions of people are voting already. They should have a say in who nominates the next the next Supreme Court justice by virtue of being elected as president. And it worries me deeply that President Trump said, well, we have to get this nominee directly to the court because they will decide the election. Well, in America, I thought that the people decide the election, not some justice on the Supreme Court. So because of the process, I won't even get into the merits or a lack thereof. Amy Coney Barrett, of course, opposes the Affordable Care Act, has said that Justice Roberts didn't decide it correctly. That means the end of health protections for millions of Americans, the end of health coverage for millions of Americans, the end of pre-existing conditions protections for millions of Americans, a woman's right to choose. So no, if this, in fact, nomination does come up for a vote, which it should not before the election, then I certainly would not be voting for her.
There's also been talk after this debate that there shouldn't be participation from candidate Joe Biden to participate in further debates just because of the talk over each candidate and the interruptions and the way that it played out. How do you feel about this? Do you think it's realistic that there wouldn't be any other debates moving forward before Election Day?
Well, I think that the Commission on Presidential Debates has to get their act in order. There should be a kill button for the moderator when any of the two candidates exceeds their time or speaks over the other. There's no value in a debate where President Trump acts like a China a bull in a china closet, wants to muscle his way through because he doesn't want to talk about how he's failed in the pandemic and hundreds of thousands and millions are infected. He doesn't want to talk about how the economic consequences from his failure of leadership has led us to a dismal time. He doesn't want to talk about that he has no plan for health care, even as he seeks to destroy the Affordable Care Act. So I think there should be debates, but there has to be a different system in which the moderator has to have some control, because otherwise the American people get nothing, and the nation is further humiliated.
Senior Senator from New Jersey, Bob Menendez, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight today.